In this assignment, you're going to have an opportunity to experience some performance tasks. You'll be choosing one ELA performance task and one math performance task to explore. Even if you don't teach ELA or math, we want to ensure that you have a full understanding of the whole picture of assessment for what students need to know and be able to do, so that way we can all support each other as teachers. After you look at the assessment items and take some notes, you'll also need to prepare to discuss with your colleagues some ideas that you've noticed. Let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is look at some ELA performance tasks. You can do that by clicking this link right here that says Sample Items ELA. You'll be taken to this screen that says English Language Arts Literacy and then Mathematics. It's a little bit smaller. In order to get to the performance task, hover your mouse over that bar up there that says View More English Language Arts Literacy Sample Items. And we did this before, and I said, don't use the performance tasks. This time, we are going to look at the performance tasks. For this assignment, you should probably choose one performance task. It might be helpful if you choose one that's in a grade band that's relevant to you. For the purpose of this demo, we'll choose Garden. So you're just going to click on that link that says Garden, and it will bring up a PDF document. Move your mouse away from that to make the little line disappear. We're going to actually look at the PDF document of Garden right here. When you get the PDF, it looks like this, and you can actually scroll past some of this introductory information to get to the student task. So the student directions are right here. The idea with this assignment is to read through the student task and determine what skills students would need in order to be successful with this task, and then think about how that compares to what students are currently being asked to do. And you can do that on your note sheet. So when you want to download your note sheet, go back into Schoology, you can click on this link, download it, print a copy, you can type directly into it. Remember, if you're using an iPad, you'll need to recreate this on a piece of paper, as you cannot print from iPad and you cannot type directly into the Word document. So let's go back to our performance task and bring up our note sheet that's already been partially completed. You can see we're doing our Garden of Learning. One of the things that we're doing while we think about this task is just reading through it, and as I said, think about the skills that students will need. Now, first of all, this says you will examine several sources about gardening. So that tells me that students are going to have to be able to read multiple sources on a single topic and probably draw inferences and make conclusions about that. Then it says they'll answer 3 questions about what they've learned, then write an argumentative article about school gardens for your school newsletter. So students are going to need to know how to write an argumentative article. If we scroll down a little bit more, one of the questions here says, what evidence does the author of the article Growing Our Own School Lunch present that would best convince your teacher to allow students to grow plants in science class? So that tells me also that students are going to need to know how to choose the best evidence to include in an argument, not just any evidence. When I think about how this type of assessment item is different from what we're currently doing in school, currently, if you think about it, our assessment is only multiple choice. Of course, the exception of that is the writing exam in grades 4 and 7. However, with the new Smarter Balanced assessments, writing will be embedded in every assessment. So no matter what grade students are in, if they're taking the Smarter Balanced assessment, they're going to be writing. The writing is also text-based. Notice how students had to actually read several texts about a topic and use those to make an argument. That's not necessarily the case with the current writing piece. And if students have to write in the current writing exam on a text-based document, usually it's not multiple sources. So that's something else that's a little bit different, and it also makes us think about how we're going to have to reframe some of the assessment and instruction that we do in our own classrooms to prepare students for this level of work. Once you're finished looking at ELA, go ahead and go back into Schoology and click the math link. So again, brings up math. And in order to look at the performance tasks, we're just going to hover our mouse over there, and now you'll see we've got 3 performance tasks here for different grade bands. And for the purpose of this assessment, or this assignment, we're going to click Field Trip, which is the 6-8 task. So click that, and then you should get a PDF document that looks like this. We'll scroll to the beginning of it, and you can see this is the first page. Once you see the first page, Just kind of scroll down again, looking for the student task. There it is. And as we read through the student task, we need to again think about what our students need to know, what skills they need to have in order to be successful at this task. So let's minimize that, bring this up. Okay, so this is all about a field trip. It says that your class and your teacher are going on a field trip. There are 3 possible choices. The teacher took a survey, and the task is for students to determine where the class should go on the field trip based on the survey results and the cost per student. So students are going to have to take into consideration 2 different factors in order to make a really good decision about where the class should go on a field trip. And then as you read through and you scroll down through the task, you'll see we've got survey results. The first thing that it asks students to do is, based only on the results of the class votes, where would you recommend the class go? You have to show your work or explain how you found your answer. Now, if we're thinking about the skills that are embedded in that, first of all, students need to know how to read survey results and make a decision based on them. They also need to know how to explain in writing their thinking. That's one piece to this puzzle. If we continue to scroll down and we see we've got all of these costs, and there are not only fixed costs like that the school fund will pay the first $200 of the trip, and that the bus, there's like 1 bus charge, there are also these variable costs. Then that's all dependent on how much the admission is to the different field trip places and so on. So students need to be able to do those calculations and figure out the cost based on these fixed costs and based on the variable costs. So that's another skill that students will need to have. In terms of how that's different from the current assessment, well, currently there is no writing on the math standardized assessments. So that's one thing that we're writing down in this model here. The performance tasks are also much more involved and require a greater amount of stamina than traditional word problems. So that's something that we're going to have to train our students to be able to deal with. The performance tasks also ask students to apply their learning to real-world scenarios. So this isn't some sort of fake scenario. This is something that could actually happen, and students might eventually be faced with this kind of decision. And in fact, giving students this kind of decision in class might be one way to practice for this type of performance task. Once you're finished exploring a performance task for both ELA and math and writing down some notes for each one, we're going to ask you to go back into the Schoology area, and you can actually click Next and go into the discussion. In the discussion is where you have an opportunity to process your learning, not just with colleagues at your site, but also colleagues across the district. You can do that by typing directly into this comment field. If you don't want to type into the comment field and you'd prefer to have a face-to-face discussion, you can do that too. That's just fine. Whatever supports your learning the most. We hope you enjoy exploring and experiencing these performance tasks.